Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm going to call this meeting to order. I would like to welcome everybody to meeting number 25 of the Government Management Committee. I want to welcome, there are no other members from outside the committee. For those of us in the room today, there's a screen in the back corner. You can provide real-time updates concerning where we are in the agenda and what's coming up next. If you're following us from home or on the internet, you can follow the agenda and debate on your computer, tablet, or smartphone at www.toronto.ca/council. I would also like to gratefully acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional territory, the Mississaugas of the New Credit First Nation, the Haudenosaunee, and the Huron-Wendat, and home to many diverse Indigenous peoples. I would also like to acknowledge at this time Ms. Zining Wang. Zining, where are you? Wave. Zining is a fourth-year student of Physical and Human Geography at the University of Toronto Scarborough campus, and she's job shadowing me for today. So she's going to keep me out of trouble because her professor told me not to get her in trouble. All right, and saying that, so our agenda before us. So there's no speakers this morning. So I'm just going to go through the agenda. Are there any declarations of a conflict under the Ontario Municipal Conflict? Any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? Seeing none on my right. Confirmation of minutes of the January 11th, 2018 meeting. Councillor Trossi, all in favor? Carried. So there are no speakers or presentations this morning. There is one add-on item that we'll get to at the end of the agenda. It's on the pink sheets in front of you. First item is apportionment of taxes, which is a 9:45 a.m. statutory meeting, so we'll come back to that. Our second one is a cancellation, reduction, or refund of property taxes. It's also a 9:45 a.m. scheduled statutory meeting, all right, part of the agenda. Item number 3 is a provision of proprietary software support and professional services from CSDC Systems Incorporated. If nobody wants to hold that, I do have an add-on item or a motion I wanted to move on it, dealing with open data. But Councillor Davis, I saw your hand going up. I'll just show you the. So I'll just have this motion put on. I'm just going to move this now. So the motion before you, it's ensuring that we adhere, we adhere to the open data policy master plan that we just passed at City Council last month.
Is that okay with staff?
Yeah. Yeah.
Staff wrote it for me to make sure I didn't do anything, put the wrong verb or words in it. So all in favor? Item as amended. All in favor? Carried. Our next item is number 4, purchasing bylaw amendment, supplier code of conduct, and other clarifications.
Oh, I'd like to hold that. Councillor
Davis is holding number 4. Number 5, real estate acquisition, the TTC College Park Station Easier Access Project. Councillor Cole is moving number 5. All in favor? Carried. Number 6 is the termination of the offer to donate land from the Mount Pleasant Group of Cemeteries to the City of Toronto. Councillor Shan's moving that. All in favor? Carried. Number 7 is real estate acquisitions, TTC Sherbourne Subway Station Easier Access Project. It's an expropriation of a portion of the property at 425 Bloor Street East.
I'll move that.
Councillor Choice is moving number 7. All in favor? Carried. Number 8 is the acquisition of Portland Slip, Spadina Slip, and the Spadina Quay Marina. Councillor Davis? Moving recommendations, or?
Move the recommendation.
Councillor Davis is moving the recommendations of number 8. All in favor? Carried. Number 9 is the amendment to blanket contract number 47020-391 to the TBM Service Group Incorporated for custodial services in various city divisions.
I'd like to hold that.
Councillor Davis is holding number 9. Number 10, Union Station Revitalization Project Contract Amendments. I'm going to move number 10. All in favor? Carried. This is my favorite construction project in the city right now. GM 25.11, redevelopment of the St. Lawrence Market North Construction Contract Award. It's in ward number 28. Councillor Troisi,
I'll move it.
you're moving it. All in favor of the recommendations in number 11? Carried. And then the one on the pink sheets. I'm moving a motion to introduce it. All in favor? On number 11?
Yes.
Or sorry, number 12?
Yes.
Okay, so motion to introduce it. All in favor? Carried. And then you're going to hold number 12, as it's called now?
Yeah, unless it can be dealt with easily, which,
Okay. Do you want to see if we can deal with it
well,
easily?
I think it should be amended to add consistent with the donation of public art policy. We have existing policies around when we accept donations in public squares and monuments and so on. So as long as it's consistent with our city policies.
Through the chair, that is correct. That will go through the right process. Correct.
So is it called the donation of public art policy?
I can verify that. I'm not sure.
Because I would just like to add, because there are
We'll
three
verify
different policies.
Okay.
So if we could hold it down and get the appropriate policy that
And then
this
we'll
will
add it.
follow.
Okay.
Yep,
Fine.
that's fine.
We'll find that out.
Okay, so we're,
And just, is that going to, yes, that's fine.
sorry, another question, Councillor Davis? Are you okay?
I
All right.
answered.
Okay, so we're actually at 9:45. So we will go to item number 25.1, which is the apportionment of property taxes at February 20th, 2018. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody in the room that would like to speak to this item? Anybody that would like to speak to this item, apportionment of property taxes? And then I have to ask a third time, would anybody like to make a public deputation on 25.1, apportionment of property taxes as of February 20th, 2018? Seeing none, I do have an amendment to the recommendations. The Government Management Committee approved the apportionment of property taxes in the amounts identified in Appendix A and B under the columns entitled Apportion Tax and Apportion Phase-In/Capping, excluding the following application from Appendix A, Ward 18, 1122 Queen Street West in the 2017 tax year. Anybody have any questions of the mover? Seeing none, all in favor of the amendment? In favor of the item as amended? Carried. And then our next item is number 2, cancellation, reduction, or refund of property taxes as of February 20th, 2018 hearing. There's nobody registered to depute on this item, so I'm going to ask if there's anybody in the room that would like to make a deputation on this item. It's the cancellation, reduction, or refund of property taxes as of February 20th, 2018. Would anybody like to make a presentation in the committee on this item? And one last time, is there anybody that would like to make a presentation? Hearing none, I need a motion to approve the recommendations. Councillor Shan, all in favor? Carried. So our next item is number 4. Councillor Davis, you held number 4, purchasing bylaw amendments, supplier code of conduct, and other clarifications.
Yes, I did want to understand better the rationale for why you decided to, I was going to say weaken, the provisions around suspensions. I know you went and consulted with some group I'd never heard of before, but I gather it's all the big contractors.
Through the chair, yes, staff were consulting with what we call the broader Construction Association Consultation Group, which is made up of various construction associations about the provision related to suspending suppliers that are in litigation with the city. They had felt that it was overly broad and they didn't have any chance to consult with prior. So we worked with them to work a solution that would make more sense for all suppliers as well as the city, and we changed it from a specific litigation suspension for someone who's in litigation with the city into relating it more to contractor performance. So if there's excessive claims or other issues in their performance, we can still consider that in the realm of suspension.
Well, I see you added it to the provisions, but it's now just one of many other performance indicators, right?
It's an aspect that
They
we
carry
could-
a lot less weight as a criteria we're assessing contractors with.
It is not intended to be something that is weighted less as compared to others. It's just as part of, we're just connecting it back to performance of past contracts for consideration, not that it's one thing is more important or less important than the other. These are all things that we could consider for suspension that relate to past performances of contracts.
Okay, but the original provision you put in there for a reason, clearly, because we only just approved this less than a year ago, and maybe we need 2/3 to reopen.
It's actually through the chair, the original
I'm joking.
provision was that we could exclude someone in litigation. We had to come up with additional information and procedures, and we had to show that the litigation would in fact affect their performance. So that this is actually just a natural evolution of that, showing that it's not the litigation that's the issue, it's the fact that it's ruined the sort of the supplier-city relationship, and therefore we should be showing this through the performance measurement process.
Now, the new provision says that there's also room for an appeal in the middle of a suspension. I can just see this. Every single one who's suspended is going to be appealing to you instantly that their performance has improved or whatever.
Well, through the chair, that was actually a gap. We've had the ability to suspend, and to date, up until late last year, we've only suspended for 1 year, but now we've embarked on longer-term suspensions, and the question might be whether there should be an opportunity for reconsideration. Not that it would automatically mean that suspensions would be lifted, but circumstances can change, and we want to make sure that there's an opportunity for the contractors to bring that forward, and that, depending on how the suspension was decided, if it was decided by council, any lifting of such suspension would have to come back here with a good, valid business reason.
Okay, it just felt as though maybe the big contractors had some influence on this policy after you met them that had me questioning why in such a short turnaround time we would virtually rescind this provision.
Through the chair, just to be clear, the committee and council adopted this in July of 2016. The purchasing bylaw became in force in January 1st of 2017, and it's been taken over the year and a half to have discussions about how that might, whether it should remain as it is or change. So this is why we brought it forth now.
But this was debated at the time, and we chose to take this path, despite the objections at that time. You believe this is a reasonable compromise? Is that what's before us?
Through the chair, yes, that's why we brought it forward.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry. Other questions of staff on this item? Councillor Davis, did you want to speak?
Well, I'll move the staff recommendations, but I think we're just opening ourselves up for constant appeals of any suspensions we ever do, and that we've weakened the provisions. But you've given us your professional advice, and so I guess we'll adopt it. And I guess if this becomes an issue, you would report back to us.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Davis. Other speakers on this item? Seeing none. Councillor Davis moving the recommendations. All in favor? Opposed? None? Carried. Our next item is number 11. Sorry, did I miss one? Sorry, yes, I did. Number 9, amendment to blanket contract number 47020391 to TBM Service Group Incorporated for custodial services for various city divisions. It was held by Councillor Davis. Councillor, do you have questions of staff?
I have a lot of questions.
All right.
The first one you don't need to answer, but why it wasn't here on time, but you noted that in the report. What I'm struggling with is to really understand what's going on. So we approved a new standard, which I gather is a new standard of caretaking that we are attempting to put in across all contracts and to consolidate. I didn't realize we were consolidating all of the existing contracts and just bringing them into this contract as the others expire. So council approved that we would bring in all the contracts into this one contract as they expired?
No, I don't. Through the chair, I don't believe that's the case. The contract with TBM Service Group represents roughly about 30% of the total square footage under management. So roughly around 3.8 million square feet of 12 million square feet that we have under management of the corporate sites. However, the contract is structured such that it has flexibility to allow additional sites to be added within the structure of that particular contract. So as we have additional demands from client divisions, then we can look at this contract to
That was not my question. My question was, did council approve that we would add these contracts as they expired into this CBM, whatever it's called, contract? Did we approve this?
My understanding is that, through the chair, the council has the authority to require approval of any new outsource or third-party contracts. This is an existing contract within which we can add or remove sites, and we're just moving within that contract.
That is not my question. My question is, did council approve the direction that as they expired, they would be added to the contract? Because clearly, they've been added to the contract prior to today as they expired, a number of new contracts over the last year.
My understanding is that we do have the authority to do that within this contract.
Okay. I couldn't find that we had approved that we would consolidate all of the contracts. Anyway.
I think the difference of detail is in net new additional contracts over and above an existing arrangement that is present. Okay. But we can certainly clarify that for you and get back to you with that.
Okay. So we contracted all this work out and said we projected we would save $1.5 million if we were going to consolidate into one contract and contract out 71 locations. The actual savings in 2017 was $800,000. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Now, the reason, as I understand it from your report, is that it took longer to migrate old contracts that were, or sites that were in-house, or migrate sites that were under other contracts. It took longer to achieve all of the sites you had expected you'd have in the contract.
Yeah, through the chair.
That's one reason.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Well, it wasn't the migration itself of other contracts in. It was the conversion to the CSSM standard.
Okay, conversion to the standard, that's right. So that's what I wanted to get. One was there were a bunch of locations. Well, this is why you're seeking this new approval, is that there are a whole bunch of locations where we had no caretaking service at all.
Right, so...
surprising. Where would we not have any caretaking in 17?
So there is, I think, listed 5 or 6 sites, but as an example, some of the yards were areas where there was no formal arrangement prior to this. There were other sites that had no prior service. There was a dormant site that had been not used for a couple of years and then was restarted.
So we were supposed to, how much are we projecting We projected that on an annualized basis, we would save 1.5 million. I understand it's an anomaly, 2017, because it's kind of a transition. Are you projecting? You would have been projecting, I presume, before the changes to the wage policy, the minimum wage legislation, you would have been projecting 1.5 million?
That is correct.
Okay, now, so then is it fair to say that the 800,000 was not a standard year?
No, we did meet the CSSM standard, but moving up from the CSSM standard at the start of the year, we gradually added some services so that the level of savings was not fully realized. And then also, it took us, into halfway through the year to start getting closer to the standard. We worked very carefully and closely with our clients to achieve that.
And so getting closer to the standard and the efficiencies and the basic standard meant reducing the amount of cleaning or reducing the standard in many of these sites? Is that why it's challenging?
The main area of activity was with one of our clients where there was a reduction from their previous expected standard. However, that previous expected standard was higher than the average of what we provide across the city.
Which division is having difficulty adapting to the new? Which divisions? Because customer service and customer satisfaction has not been reported here very clearly. I'd like to know, where is the cleaning being done to a standard that people are satisfied with, and which divisions are not satisfied with the new standard, basic standard?
Two of our major partners on this account with TBM services are the TPS and TESS, as well as many internal clients at the Civic Center buildings. We're working very closely with those groups to ensure that they do indeed get the service level expectation and standard that they are requesting. Having said that, we start with the base CSSM standard and work our way up from that standard to ensure that we right-size their service delivery.
I've got many other questions.
Sorry, Councillor.
I have many other questions.
Did you want a second round of questions? If it's fine with the committee, we can do a second round of questions.
Do you have any other questions?
The committee's all nodding in agreement. You can have a second round of
Do you have
questions.
any questions? I mean, there's a 30% increase in this contract, and we're contracting out more locations with very little information here. I don't understand then, with the additional cost of the minimum wage is about 350,000. So that materially changes what would have been the comparative costs between in-house and contracted services. Wouldn't you agree? And now we're in a different place where we now are paying much more for this contract, opening up the contract and giving them funding to accommodate legislative change. Have you looked at what the in-house comparison is like now?
The impact of the, through the chair, the impact of the additional fair wage amount is consistent with, impacts internally. So, as you may be aware, TBM is registered with LUNA. They follow the same or similar fair wage practices. And we've gone to other users of this type of contract, such as the libraries board. They use the similar supplier, and through consensus with them, we've agreed that on the subject of fair wage, the service and the cost charged by TBM is consistent and similar to the uptick that we would see as we apply the fair wage amounts to internal staff as well.
So if the wages are the same, what's the difference? What's the difference in the standard or the amount of cleaning that we're getting?
The standard, through the chair, the standard that we're getting is consistent with the CSSM standard, plus any additional requirement that each client has, such as TESS or TPS. But generally, we had worked for over 2 years with the Facilities Management Service Standards Committee to agree a standard that was applicable across the citywide landscape in order to ensure a standard that was acceptable and consistent.
I read the customer satisfaction report that came previously, and the divisions were not satisfied with the service standard. So has that changed?
Well, as through the chair, as outlined in our report, we are working through those challenges with our clients. We're working as partners with them. This is, quite a significant shift in the way the service is provided and also the level of service. So, having said that, we're also, trying to balance that with, the direction that we get through council, the direction that we get from the AG's office to ensure that we are providing the best value for the city. So in that case, we do look at both aspects of delivery, whether it be through an external service provision, through TBM or similar contracts, or self-perform, within our own resources. And we do still use extensive self-performed delivery. TBM represents, about a third of our total delivery.
Okay. I did want to ask about children's services, where children's services is in all of this. I didn't see them in here.
So I would have to get a clarification on that. My understanding through the chair is that they have their own internal cleaning services, given the specific requirements.
No, we voted, unfortunately, to contract out their cleaning.
My understanding is that they use our city services, internal services.
Oh,
We have not actually done any of the outsourcing for children's services.
okay, we approved it. So it's not going ahead?
At this point in time, unless we come back to council.
Okay, because they definitely need a higher standard than the basic. I don't know what the basic standard is, but I know at the library, there's a lot of unhappiness about the standard of cleaning in libraries. So what we've done on the cost side is we've said, okay, the library's already negotiated some deal with them, and so we're going to, because it's fair. Is that, we think it's fair?
Well, through the chair, the library was one of different clients that we looked at to get essentially a cross-check as to whether we should approve the $308,000 in the fair wage. And we did a scan, and we felt that it was a fair and equitable number for the service that is being provided.
And we are still waiting, are we not, for the
Last question.
living wage report?
Correct.
When are we going to see the living wage report?
Do we have a date, guys? It's with Chris Berlinger and team.
Yeah. So through the chair, my understanding is that the SDFA had delivered a separate report, and my understanding is that there is a 2-year pilot underway to move towards that living wage standard as part of the approach there with SDFA.
Through the chair, just to clarify, that was part of the poverty reduction strategy report adopted by council last month, and it's the pilots with respect to some of those additional criteria that government management was considering with when the bill, when the minimum wage was not yet in force. I think in the timeline, though, there is a note on living wage. I have to go look it up to see when it is. I'm not sure if it's within the 2-year frame right now.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Councillor Shan, did I see your hand?
Sorry, I just need to get a bit more context on this. So so in terms of the custodial services we offer, we provide through contracting out, is this the only company that provides us custodial services, or is it the major company in terms of percentage of work?
Through the chair, we do have a couple of other companies currently. One other is Impact, okay. And there is one other one that has a lesser amount of contracts.
Now, in terms of when we're talking about wages, it's kind of hard for me to contextualize this because I don't know what kind of wages are currently being paid. Is that something that is shared to us, and do we know what's being adjusted because of the increased support from what to what, or what percentage is being adjusted?
Yes, we have the numbers. We would be happy to share those with you.
Yeah, is it possible to know now, or like is it?
If I can just have a moment, I'll just check what the rates are between the internal service provision and the external service provision, the hourly rates.
And is there also an indication of how many more staff would be hired as a result of the increase in terms of additional services and stuff like that, or do we just make it in terms of more service-based addition? Do we get data in terms of what it means in terms of staffing?
We, through the chair, we work closely. Whenever we add sites or we make adjustments to the service, we work very closely with the client to ensure that they have adequate presence of the service provider at their sites. In the case, as an example of the TPS, there was a move towards a desk side pickup, moving to a centralized pickup. So that did take us some time to move to that level. That did result in some reduction of a number of staff and the hours visiting. However, that was an efficiency that was present within the whole citywide network. So we drove the effectiveness of the overall contract by ensuring that within that client, the TPS, and the other clients such as TESS, strategies such as the centralized desk pickup going away to a centralized model were leveraged. So in those cases, you perhaps would see some less frequency of staff moving around, but that is something that is done certainly in the office locations, in the major civic centers, the office locations. That's a standard that we've pushed as part of the CSSM.
So would we have data, I'm sure you would, but would it be shareable in terms of, say, 2017, X amount of full-time equivalents were employed through this contract?
Yes, we would have absolute numbers as to how much staffing the TBM service contract as their base bid, and then the actual staffing they deployed as a result of the adjustment to the CSSM standard.
Now, in terms of when did we shift, did we offer this in-house before, and when did the shift take place? Which year was the shift?
My understanding is that the original, through the chair, my understanding is that the original shift was over 5 or 6 years ago. There was actually a council direction to provide the external services for the whole of the police portfolio. However, as that was in transition, in motion, there was a secondary direction by council to stop the external services provision. So partway, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, it was stopped. However, what we did do was continue to maintain the external services that were already provided, and through contracts such as the TBM contract, we used that as an opportunity to get consistency and standardization by rolling in any other smaller third-party contracts that we had.
Okay. So when was the last time we did any comparison between the two models if you were to shift back into one or the other?
Through the chair, we are constantly doing comparisons of the internal service cost versus the external cost. At this time, it's our position that the TBM contract provides good value, and I would, expand that line of thinking in going to the actual budgeted amounts in this report are all being met. So we work closely with our partners at TPS and TESS. All of their budgets are being met. What was planned is being met. The variance is because when we bid the contract, we bid it at the base CSSM standard and worked our way up from there. So we are still showing significant savings against the original spend that these clients had for their locations pre-TBM.
Thank you.
Sorry, any other questions of staff? Seeing none. Speakers? Councillor Davis, you held the item.
Just wanted to look at the report itself. Well, I do think that council should see this. It's a report that has exceeded the blanket amounts that were authorized. It is It has resulted in 300,000 less savings, and it's completely justified because of the minimum wage. But I don't understand why it is that we have seen the inability to introduce this system in a way that is satisfactory to the various divisions who use it. I do think that now with the cost of the fair wage going up, that the differences between an in-house and a contracted service has shrunk significantly. On top of this, we've had to hire additional staff to monitor the contract and to ensure compliance with the standards. I understand this arises out of the Auditor General's report and the need to make sure we're only paying for the cleaning that we're providing, and the square footage and consistent, weighting. The system of identifying the scope of the work needed to be improved. I understand all of that. But I'm just not convinced now that if fair wage is a fair wage, and it's the same virtually between the two sectors, that why we wouldn't keep it in-house. We have much greater control if it's in-house. I don't know how two people monitoring, dropping in and once in a while, they were only able to visit 37 sites this year. Not even, I don't think even half of what number of sites we have under this contract. I also don't believe that City Council approved migrating all existing contracts into one. I think having this one contract leaves us vulnerable, and so I would amend it, I guess, to say City Council, replace government management, and just say City Council, grant authority, and it will go to council. Thank you. I just, and I will say it every time, we talk out of one side of our mouths saying we want decent jobs, good paying jobs, and we want to make sure that people are paid a living wage with benefits. And out of the other side of our mouths, we contract it out to the private sector with the notion that the primary objective is getting the lowest price. And I think we should be a better model employer, and that we should be providing decent in-house jobs as opposed to contracting them out. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other speakers? No? Okay, so I'm going to move the recommendations in the report. So if you look at the report, this cleaning contract, custodial issue, it's been to the Auditor General, it's been reviewed twice. The Auditor General gave us guidance. The Auditor General's report was approved at City Council. This has been this Government Management Committee twice, as we've made sure that staff have adhered to what the Auditor General's told us to do. Staff have adhered to our guidance and the guidance of the Auditor General's office. We have a fair wage office that has been in existence, I think, since 1893, that continues to do very diligent work to make sure that these contracts are all adhered to, that the guidelines of council and the Auditor General are adhered to, and this has been to council already. It's been approved by council. Staff are following the guidelines that were ultimately approved by council, and so I'm going to be moving the recommendations in this report, and I hope that the majority of this committee will approve them and support our staff that have been doing this work. Thank you. Okay, so we have the recommendations before us. Sorry?
Just before, just a point of information. I need to know the answer to the question I had asked about the wages before I vote on this, if that is possible.
Yes, through the chair, we do have a comparator number So very, at a rough order of magnitude, the external service provision is at around $16 to $17 per hour. And the internal service provision is at around $20 per hour, representing a very rough order of magnitude of, $20 to $24 per hour, so representing a rough order of magnitude of a 25 to 30% difference just in the wage.
Is that the average amount, or 16 to 17 the kind of the wage that is paid to a person who is doing the work?
It's in that range. I would say if you used an average of $16.50, that would be a fair representation of the wage being paid to the external provider.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Shan. So we have the recommendations before us. All in favor?
I would like to understand your ruling on why my motion is out of order, Mr. Chair.
I didn't hear you move a motion.
I did. I move to amend from this committee authorizing this to City Council authorizing it.
So this is, so Councillor Davis, your motion's out of order because the item before us today was delegated to us under the financial control bylaws by City Council. So it's been delegated to us to take care of and to deal with. So I can't send it back to City Council. It's been delegated to us. So I'm ruling your motion out of order.
The interim control bylaw provides authority, it doesn't mandate it.
So Councillor, I'm ruling your motion out of order. You can challenge the chair if you like.
I'll challenge the chair. I believe that we have the authority to send this to council should we choose, even
Okay, so I'm
though...
ruling your motion out of order. I've explained why.
Okay.
Okay. All in favor of the chair? Opposed? And that carries. Challenge is turned down. All right, so we have the recommendations in the report before us. All in favor? Opposed? Sorry, Councillor, I didn't. All in favor? Opposed? And the recommendations in the report carry.
Oh,
And then we have item number. Okay,
had it recorded, but...
sorry?
Is it too late to ask for recorded?
You want a recorded vote now? All right. Recorded vote on the recommendations in the report. All in favor? Councillor Cole, Councillor Ainsley, Councillor Troisi, opposed? Councillor Shan, Councillor Davis. Recommendations pass. Okay, our last item of business is number 12.
I mean, what are you supposed to...
Councillor Davis, you held it. It's the new item, civic action. You had a question
There
of
is-
staff?
I understand there is an amendment prepared,
Yep.
which is to ensure it's in compliance with the public art and monument policy of the city.
Okay. So that's the motion on the screen. Does anybody else like to speak to this?
I think you should, because I'd like to understand the genesis of this and how it arrived here.
It's right here.
No, I understand. Why it wouldn't have gone through the administration.
Sorry?
Why it didn't go through the administration route.
It's before us. I'm moving it.
I understand that. So
Are you asking me questions?
I'm asking you as the mover.
Okay.
So they've already identified who's going to be honored on this whatever it's going to be. A monument?
Sorry, Councillor Davis.
I said, so they've already decided who's going to be honored on it. And do we know what it's going to look like, or where it would be located, and what is I understand it's David Pecaut Square. It doesn't mean, though, that there's an automatic recognition of Civic Action's choice of funders, yes, funders. Is that these people who are going to be honored are people who've made donations?
So I don't think it's honoring anybody, specific person. It's honoring the concept of
It
civic
says that
leadership that's going on Pecaut Square, David Pecaut Square.
No, it says they will be honored on the installation. So if we pass this, does that mean we're going to approve that all of these people are going to be included on the, whatever it is?
So my understanding is it's a statue or monument dedicated to civic leadership. It's going in David Pecaut Square. There's a public art and monument donation policy it has to adhere to. And we also have a landlord that actually owns Pecaut Square that we have to negotiate with them, I understand, as well, before we can put something there. So this isn't the ultimate approval.
It's written to the mayor, and it's going to have the mayor on the monument, it says. Yes, it does.
Word. So that's my understanding of it, Councillor Davis.
And what would the process have been normally for this? Who's in charge of monuments and public art? It used to be protocol, and then it was the culture division, and then it was facilities, and I don't know.
Through the chair, the policy is shared through economic development and facilities management. And there is a submission process through the policy where someone puts forward a recommendation. There's an internal review panel with consideration of external consultation, and then ultimately to council for approval.
Okay. We'll go through that process.
Yes.
Councillor Cole?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know if I'm asking this of you as the mover or to staff,
I know.
but the way the recommendation reads, it sounds like we're installing something and we don't know what that something is. And the way the appendix reads is that these names and corporations specifically will be cited on whatever it is that we install. And so I'm just wondering if there can be some tweaking to the motion of the wording that reflects what we just heard from staff as opposed to what I see in front of me here. Yeah, but sorry, I guess my other question to you is, does the public art monument donation policy prescribe or dictate whether BMO will be on the plaque or not?
Through the chair, yes, through the internal review process, there is a review of both content and the proposed composition of the display, and so that is part of the internal review that would come forward as part of a recommendation.
And then that final recommendation would include what the it is,
Yes.
what's on it, where it would be, and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
Great, thank you very much.
Councillor Sham?
So I'm just trying to understand the clarity between the two parts of the process. So it here says that we are moving a recommendation that council approve the request. So at what point does the authority of the council, or in case of a decision, in case of a conflict, I guess, between what the staff come up with and what the council, this kind of is putting both at the same time? I wonder which one would supersede the other?
Through the chair, I mean, staff would not be allowed to proceed with the proposal unless it was approved by council as per the policy. So the internal review would require a recommendation be put forward by staff, and have to have council authority to proceed.
So why wouldn't the wording then be City Council approve the initiation of the process for so-and-so? This actually says it approves the monument, technically. It doesn't say it approves, it approves the initiation of the process, technically. So it's a bit confusing.
We should refer it to staff, this committee, for consideration in the... If this goes to council right now in the form we have it, it doesn't tell us enough. And I don't think we should take anything forward to council that says approve. I think it should be referred, that the Government Management Committee refer to the appropriate staff the request from this isn't it, but it would be
Come back next month.
to refer it to staff.
Refer to staff.
Opposed? That carries. And then Councillor Troisi, you have the bills.
That the Government Management Committee pass and declare as a bylaw a confirmatory bill to confirm that the legislative proceedings of the Government Management Committee acting under delegated authority of meeting 25 held on February 20th, 2018.
All in favor of Councillor Troisi's motion? Carried unanimously. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Cole? Recorded. Councillor Cole? Councillor Ainsley? Councillor Davis? Councillor Shan? Councillor Troisi? Motion to adjourn is approved unanimously.